Hey, and welcome back to another Learning Java 2D Game Programming video. So in our last video, we made some background music happen, and we did this by making a simple audio system, which just reads a sound file from a specific resources folder and makes a clip out of it and plays it. So awesome. In this video, I want to change the volume inside of the options menu. So we're going to have to redo some stuff or add some stuff to our audio code. And then we're going to make a new UI component, which is the UISlider. So let's get to that. The first thing I want to do is I want to refactor these two settings out of the game settings. So I'm going to make a new class and I'm going to call it audio settings, just to separate it a little bit and keep it a little neater. And I'm still gonna keep the audio settings inside the game settings, but you'll see why I wanna do this in a bit. So first make a constructor, and I don't think I'm gonna take those in actually. I'm gonna set 1 as default value for both. All right, let's make some getters and setters. There we go. And then in here, I'm gonna keep a copy of this audio settings. Actually, I'm gonna initialize it in here. Audio settings, new audio settings. Awesome. So get rid of those and generate a getter for the audio settings. All right, close that off. Now I'm gonna go into the audio player. So as you can see in this update, we're taking in a game settings, and that is fine. So we say update the audio clip, and in the audio clip, we are changing the gain according to the volume inside of the game settings. But a problem that I've found when I played around with this is that for the music clips, which are long, it's fine. So this system is buffering this sound a little bit, which means that for like half a second, maybe 1 second, I don't know, the volume effect or the volume isn't going to have effect because that sound is already buffered. So it's not doing anything with that. However, for short sounds, which might be one of these, waiting for the update method won't be enough because the first part of this sound clip has already been buffered. So the entire clip is going to actually have time to play before this volume change actually takes effect, which means that we need to make this volume change before anything has started buffering. So at the time of loading the clip. So at the play sound and play music methods, we need access to these audio settings. For this reason, I've decided I want to keep a reference to the audio settings inside of the audio player, which means that we don't need game settings when we update. Instead, I'm going to go into the audio clip and I'm going to take audio settings instead. Shift F6, audio settings. And get volume now takes an audio settings, and Shift F6, audio settings. All right, and then go into these. Now this needs to be audio settings instead. Audio settings. There we go. And also here. All right, there we go. So, also, next thing. Here we set the gain, which is not the same as volume. There is a type called volume, but this clip doesn't seem to support it, so you will get an error if you try to use it. But we can simulate the same thing by using the gain. The gain is just a way of multiplying whatever volume you have So you can multiply it by a negative value or a positive value, but it's weird, and the range is minus 80 decibels to 6 decibels. So we're gonna hide that. In our UI, we're still gonna do 0 to 100, but what that 0 to 100 means is the minimum to the maximum value that this game can have. So the first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna actually move these, refactor, make a method of that. Let's see, where is that? Extract method, there we go. And private void, yes, yes, yes. And we need a name, so I'm gonna call it set volume. And refactor. Awesome. So now we are in the set volume. So now what we're gonna do instead is, first, let's get a float called range. The range is going to be the control get maximum minus the control get minimum. Then we are going to calculate the gain, which will be the range times the get volume with the audio settings. And then we add the minimum. All right, so now we can set the value. Whoop, that was weird. Now we can set the volume down here to the gain. Okay, so in this way, in our settings, we can store 0 to 1 instead, and it will be much easier for us. All right. So to fix the thing that we were talking about, first of all, this needs the audio settings. To fix the thing that we were talking about, so we set the volume before we start playing the clip to make sure that it uses the volume from the beginning. Let's say introduce variable. And now we can say music clip set volume, and we need to make that public. I guess it could be package as well. These are in the same package. So set volume and give it the audio settings. And let's do the same with the sound clip. So first let's refactor, introduce variable. I'm gonna call it sound clip. I'm gonna say sound clip, set volume, and it needs the audio settings. There we go. Now we've set the volume before we start playing the sound, and that will make it much easier, you'll see. All right, let's get out of that and let's change the state now. State. All right, so the audio player now actually, we need it to still be in there because we need to take in the audio settings, of course. So the audio settings comes in when we create this audio player. We're gonna say this.audio settings is equal to audio settings. And in the state, now we need a way of giving it this setting. But as I've been thinking, we can probably store the game settings inside of our state. Just gonna close that. There are probably gonna be so many things that we wanna use in here, and we can put more settings in here that it's just gonna make sense to be able to access it from the state. So the state can keep a reference to the game settings. That means we need to take the game settings in, and we need to set it. And that means that in the audio player, we can say get audio settings from the game settings. So now that will be happy. However, now we need to fix the menu state and the game state. So we need to add it here too. And then put it in here. Then go to, the game state. Go up here. We need to take that in. Game settings, game settings, game settings. And now you can see that this is red. It's because we're creating a menu state. So we need to pass in the game settings, which we can because we have it. And I'm sure there are more places. Just press play and it will try to compile, and it'll tell you where stuff is wrong. So as you can see here, UI main menu, we are also making a state. And since we're not inside the state, we don't have it, but we can get it from the state if we make a getter. So go to the state and make a getter. Alt insert getter for the game settings. Back to the UI main menu and get those game settings. All right, so now that's happy. And also in the game class, we need to send in the settings and we need to make sure to initialize it before. There we go. I think that's all happy now. Just gonna test that out. And it seems to be. Awesome. All right, now on to our UI slider. So the first thing that I want to do, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit, is our UI container and this absolute position. So our problem with our UI container is, of course, that sometimes it acts as a container, but it also acts as a UI component, as a child. And we need it to behave in slightly different ways, which means that we have some if statements. And maybe we can solve it in some better way since we have different needs. But for now, we need to save a parent. And I'm not going to do this just for the UI container. I think that every UI component will be helped by knowing its parent. That way we can, for example, easily make something that can grow to the size of the parent, since every UI component is in charge of updating its own size currently. So if we know the parent, then we can easily grow. We can easily adapt and change. So we're going to keep a reference to a container, which will be the parent, and only containers are parents of UI components, of course. So I'm going to make a setter for this parent. I don't know if we need a getter, so I'm not going to make one yet, but I'm going to close out of this UI or UI component. So what that means is when we calculate our own position here, we only want to calculate our own position if we don't have a parent, at least our absolute position. We only want to calculate our own absolute position if we don't have a parent. So if parent is null, then we do this, because otherwise our parent is going to handle our absolute position for us using the calculate content position. So that's a thing. Also, when we're adding a UI component now, we want to also go into that component and set this as that component's parent. Awesome. This will fix a bug with having clickable objects inside several containers, or where containers are inside of each other. So moving on, let's make the UI slider. Going to the clickable package, make a new class, UI slider. It will extend UI clickable. Let's implement those classes. So what are we gonna need to save here? We're of course gonna need the value. We're gonna need the minimum value that we can have and the maximum value that we can have. So let's alt insert and make a constructor. I'm only going to take in the min and max values, and then I'm going to say that by default the value is the max value. All right. We're also going to need to set the size. So this size will be fixed. And I'm going to give it 360 for width, and I'm going to give it 10 for height. All right. Now, what's going to happen when we click on this? We want to know what ratio we've clicked, like what part of the whole have we clicked at, and then we want to convert that to a value between this range. So let's do that. When we click, we say this dot value, and let's actually put this inside its own inside its own method. So get value at, and we need to get the mouse position that we clicked. And I feel like the X is enough. So get value at X. All right, and this is the X. Maybe we need to give it a better name to really understand. X position. Yeah, sure. All right, so how do we calculate this? Well, first, let's get the position on the slider. And that will be whatever position we clicked minus our absolute position. Then let's get the ratio or the percentage of what that is. So that would be position on this. Sorry, let's call that. I'm going to call it percentage because I can't think of a better name. So position on slider divided by the width. And then let's get the range, and the range is just max minus min. So what do we return? We return the minimum value plus the range multiplied by the percentage. All right, this is gonna get a converted value from where we clicked on the slider. All right, so that's awesome. Now let's make a sprite so that we can see something. So you've done this before. Let's get that buffered image. I'm gonna call it sprite. I'm gonna import the buffered image, and I'm gonna first cast this to a buffered image, and that will be image utils create compatible image of the size that we have. And I think this can be opaque. And then let's get that graphics out. Graphics is equal to sprite create graphics. Now we are going to have to paint. So let's start by setting a color that will be the background color for the bar. So if it's empty, it will be this color. And I'm just going to say color gray. Now let's draw the entire bar. So fill rect. Start at 0, 0. Fill it with the entire width and the entire height. And then now let's fill in the value. So we're going to set color. I'm going to set it to white. And now we fill the rect. We start at 0, 0, but now we need to know how far do we want to draw this. So I am going to we need to convert it from the value back to pixels on the slider. So let's get pixels of current value maybe, and the height will be the same. So let's generate this method. It will return an int because we are dealing with pixels, which means, let's see, how do we do this? So first of all, let's just get that range again. Max minus min. All right, and let's see. Do we still call it percentage? I don't know what part. What is a good word? I feel like my English is failing me here, but I'm gonna call it percentage, even though I'm not sure if that's really true. So that's gonna be the value minus min. All right, now we can return the percentage divided by the range, and then multiplied by the size get width. And I wonder what order these will be done in. I hope they are done. Do they have the same priority, multiplication and division? I don't remember, so I'm just gonna, to feel safe, put those in that. And also this needs to be int. Maybe it will be better if we do integer value of. Can you do that with like a float or a double? It just says int here. We can just cast it the old way. We can just say int. The problem is we need to add another parentheses. Otherwise it'll just make this into an int and we'll get a weird behavior. But so here we go. This is the pixels of our current value. So converted back. Maybe we want these to be next to each other. All right. Now we can convert between whatever range we have here in value and the clicks that we do. So are we done for now? Don't know. We can only know by trying. So I'm gonna go into the menu states. I'm gonna go into my option menu. Here we have options and we have a UI button that says back. So, all right, let's just add a UI component, a new UI slider, and it takes a min and a max. And well, I guess the min was 0 and the max was 1. Okay, just gonna see what this does. So right now it does nothing because we never finished it, did we? I just returned null. That was silly of me. We've done this several times. So dispose of the graphics and return that sprite. Right, because I was doing this and I got so caught up in it, I forgot the rest. All right, there we go. We can click it. Of course, we need to set this value to the actual value. All right, so let's see if we can just hook up this so the value is actually set. And do I do that in here? Yeah. All right. Let's do this. Let's save that slider. UISlider. Let's say music vol slider. And when we do this, I'm gonna say music vol slider is equal to new UI slider of 0 and 1. And yeah, then let's set it in here. So what did we gain by that? Now we can get the update method. Public void update. It takes a state. And remember to call super update with this state. And now, do we want to do something like handle volume? Pass in the state. So there we can have the sound volume in here later as well. Okay, so state, get game settings, get audio settings, set music volume, music vol slider, get value. We didn't have a getter for that. Let's go into our slider and I'm actually going to make a getter and a setter for the value. All right, so music vol slider, get value. We provided a double and it wants a float. Let's actually just cast this to a float. And now when we update, we should be handling volume. So let's see if that did anything. The thing that was happening is we're not updating our audio player from our state. And that is, of course, something that we need to do. So let's try that again. And what do you know? As you can hear, let's just give it a little label. Let's go to the UI option menu. I'm just gonna quickly make a UI text. I'll call it music vol label. And first we need to make something of it. Music vol label is equal to new UI text. I'm just gonna give it nothing because we're gonna set it when we update. And then we need to add that, add UI component, music vol label without an I. There we go. And when we update, we are handling the volume. So right now, this was just for debugging purposes. Let's set it so that we can see this. So music vol label dot set text. Let's use string dot format. I'm gonna say music vol and then something like %d. Right, and then I'm actually gonna do math.round and let's music vol slider get value, and this now it's between 0 and 1, so let's multiply that by 100, and that way we can get a range from a 0 to 100, so in percentage basically. So let's just see what that looks like. All right, and we added it in the wrong order, which of course we want it to be like this instead. All right, and you can hear that there's a small delay. And from what I read, there isn't much to do about that. That's the way that this system is made. So, because it's buffering a little bit of the clip. So that bit that's already buffered won't get affected by this volume change. But I feel like this is cool, and we've actually made a slider component. It doesn't work quite the way I want it. You can't drag it currently. That's quite an easy fix, but we've already used very much time. So I'm gonna do that in the next video. Actually, in the next video, maybe we can make the UI a little prettier. I'll get back on that. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. Hej då!